not a great result for EPL Group C and D. I don't think my decision making was necessarily bad with this draft. But the problem was I didn't have Apex, who had a life event, insane rating, so that was a mistake. And then NAF just did not perform. He was really poor just in every single game, which is really disappointing because I expected a lot from him. And JKS and Yukinda both performed really well in those opening couple of games, so that kind of buffed everyone else and was a big negative effect for me. So ultimately, it was pretty much possible for me to end up with a good result because I didn't have those key players. So unlucky, it happens. Let's take a look at playoffs. So this is how I anticipate the brackets play out. If the favorites win every matchup, that's the key thing here. Upsets obviously always possible. I think the thing with the most certainty I can say is that Vitality should be getting to that grand final. I don't think any teams in this top side will be beating them. I think VP probably have the second best run here. However, you know what it's like with me and VP. Because I've said that they're going to get to the semis, they probably lose to Heroic. You know, I disregarded them last event and they played great. So now that I'm putting stock in them, expect failure. On the bottom side, I do think it's very up in the air. The problem with G2 and Na'Vi is they start in the quarters and they have either FAZE or Liquid or Spirit on this side. And then they've got to play, you know, Na'Vi has to play G2 or FAZE or G2 has to play Na'Vi or Spirit. It's tough to really call which team with certainty gets that grand final outside of Vitality. So I think it's not a bad idea to maybe split some players between these teams or even go for FaZe and Spirit just because they have the deeper run. So you got more opportunity to get points in these first couple of rounds, and then you have the chance of upsetting a G2 or Na'Vi. So a couple of things to think about. Running through some players quickly, I think you're crazy to pick anyone from Na'Vi other than Imma. I think that they're way too expensive for where they start and with the upset potential. I think Alexi, he's good for boosters and roll, but honestly for 194, just get Apex. I don't see the idea behind getting anything other than Imma here. Vitality, do what you want. Apex's form has obviously been better than Mezzi's lately, so you've got to go him. I've given up on Mezzi. I guess Apex thinks, but because that's going to be so common, Apex Flames. I don't hate Zywoo if you can make it work. I couldn't, but yeah, do what you want with Vitality, but you probably want to put heavy Vitality just because of the run. Chopper's insanely cheap, and I think with the teams that they've got in that lower bracket, I can see why he's so popular. And I think Donk is also a really good draft. So I think this is one of the best Chopper Donk drafts you can do at the moment. However, it's going to be really common. Donk's in the top 8 most picked players. So you might want to be looking at Shiro or Zontix instead. I really find it hard to justify G2 here because of the quarterfinal start, especially with the prices on these players now. I think Hunter is maybe the only one you could make a case for. I guess Nax gets the padding, so it's okay, but for me, G2 are really hard to justify because of where they start. FaZe's pricing is brilliant, except Frozen. He had a really good group stage, but I think 220 is too much when Rops and Brokey are both this price. It's the cheapest I've ever seen Brokey, actually, so I'd be really recommending him if you can afford him, just as one player from FaZe, but Rops and Rain, both good choices. VP's pricing is also quite cheap. I think that Jame is good value. Fame has been looking a lot better lately. I mean, it's up to you where you want to go here. Norbert is one of the cheapest players in this event and is probably better value than Carrigan, so I guess that's the case for him. Something to think about. Liquid, it's hard with their pricing, I think, with where they start. I guess you're looking at JKS and Twists from this team. Do they beat FaZe? That's the question you got to ask, because if they can't beat FaZe, they can't beat G2. Eternal Fire, I think, are too expensive for where they start in the bracket, and I think Mongols has their number from past results, so hard to justify these players. I think Complexity have a good case to be made. You know, if you think Complexity can beat FaZe, if you think Complexity can beat Liquid, I don't hate it, especially with Holzek and Floppy being quite affordable. That's the combo I would go. I think Mongols are actually a really cool draft just because I do think they win both their opening games. I don't think they beat Vitality, but you can probably get some good points in those first 2 games. So if you got 9-10, for instance, or Techno, there's a chance you could get like one of these guys and get some good points in those 2 games. I don't rate Fury at all. Spirit's going to absolutely run them over, so don't even look at them. Heroic, I just can't see them beating VP. Past matchup history isn't great, and Heroic's form doesn't look good. But I think what stands out to most is the pricing. Tessus is $190. That's very cheap for Tessus. Nertz is only just over $200. He performed really well in group stage. But can this team beat VP? Hard to say. There is a case for this to be an underdog team that does make it through to the matchup, the semis, I think, with Vitality. But it's a difficult case to make. But hey, if you want to do an underdog draft, go ahead. Don't rate big here at all, unfortunately. Mongols and Eternal Fire are too strong, and then you've got Vitality. MIB Art definitely could do something here, and they're pretty affordable. I think Safe in particular is good value for $195. But the thing is, do they beat VP? Do they beat M80? And they don't beat Vitality, so it's tough with where they start. I think with M80, the strongest case here is for Swisher, but maybe Lake. I like Swisher because you can get him. You get your 12 points of padding because he starts in quarters. Then you just put Chicken Out Booster on him if you want to. I'd probably save that until the second game they play, but like throw bottom of the scoreboard on, then throw Chicken Out, and suddenly, you might end up just neutralizing negative points and ending up with positive points for him. So I kind of like the idea of Swisher here just to kind of abuse this new booster. Don't draft Imperial. For my draft, I'm going to start with the safe baseline of double Vitality, and it has to be Sphinx Apex just because of the money. Messi's just not worth it for the 5k, and Flames is just a little bit too expensive. So we go with the crowd, but that's what safety's all about. I'm not getting Na'Vi for the risks I've kind of mentioned, and I really want to take advantage of the deep brands of FaZe and Spirit, and I've already got my safety net and Vitality, so I feel okay avoiding Na'Vi G2 because of this. However, to afford these two teams, I do have to go back to an abusive X. I've got to grab Norbit. I don't want to, but I think he's better value than Karrigan. And I do think there's a chance he'll get me some points with the games that VP have. So Norbit's the cheapie that allows me to fund this team. I'm then going to grab Zontix, and I'm going to grab Robs. I would have preferred Brokey, and I can get him over Zontix technically, but I really want to get both of those runs, and I think that Spirit have a really good chance of getting good points on players like Zontix just because of how easy those first two games should be for them. So I feel that Zontix is going to go under the radar here despite a bad group stage. I know what his ceiling is, and I know that he can deliver for me. And Robs' form has been great. So overall, there's some risk here with these three players, but I feel that it's mitigated by Vitality, and there's a good chance I can get points from them. So that's going to be my team. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're drafting for this one. There's a lot of different options you can go, so I'm really curious to see what you're cooking up. Let me know, and good luck.